Carnage is on an adventure. What will this mean for the people that he meets? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues of comic books, and I break them down into digestible bites, add a few little funny voices in there and some background music, and then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to your panel, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. In her last video, FBI agent Claire Dixon was tasked with the capture of Cletus Cassidy. Though she received help from John Jameson, aka the Man-Wolf, and Eddie Brock, host of the Toxin Symbiote, Carnage managed to escape. Now he's in possession of a mystical book called the Darkhold, and Carnage has found new powers and even fewer weaknesses. If you want to watch that episode, I'll link it down below. Out in the middle of the ocean, about 180 miles southeast of Christmas Island, Jabulile is sailing her boat, enjoying the mid-morning. With everything that was needed to be done on the boat already done, she's decided that it's time to relax and enjoy the waves. But before she can fully relax, she sees a giant explosion off in the distance. She looks through her binoculars and sees a lifeboat floating out in the water and quickly steers her boat to see if anyone is hurt. Once she pulls up, she sees a boat sinking, and in that lifeboat, a broken and bloody man. She pulls the man onto her boat and she tries to help, but she notices that he is holding something while even knocked out. Pulling the satchel away, the man jumps out of bed shouting, "Where is it? Can't lose it!" He then passes back out. She takes the satchel and finds the book, and then she takes it topside to read it. She's unable to understand most of it, but in the book there's a nautical chart. She tries to make out some of the words, and the man's voice tells her that he wouldn't read it if he was her. But got anything to eat? Back inside, the man begins eating all of the food on the boat and asks Jabulile her name. She tells him that it's Jabulile van Scotter. The man laughs, stating, "You're a mutt!" "Don't worry, every American is a mutt too. My name is Cletus. Thanks for saving my ass back there." As the conversation goes on, Cletus asks that since she appears to be by herself out here, is she any good at reading sea maps? She tells him nautical charts. So he points to a spot on the chart, stating that they need to go there. She looks at it and tells him that that spot is nothing but empty ocean, and besides that, they need to get to a hospital so they can treat his injuries. His face begins to split open and he says, "You look like a sweet girl, but does this face look injured to you?" Carnage begins to take over and she tries to escape, but a few moments later she waits in the lower part of the boat as she sticks her head out to see if Carnage is gone. She then sees him hanging from the sail, telling her, "It's a boat! There really isn't anywhere you can go hide!" Then a tendril shoots out and knocks her out. As the sun begins to come up, she opens her eyes and Carnage tells her, "The book is called the Darkhold, something to do with the elder god named Carthun, whatever, it's something like that. The book made me better and stronger, and with it, I can make a bunch of mini-me's. Just watch it, I'll show you." He opens up the book and he cuts his wrist, spilling the blood onto the book. The blood begins to form tendrils and it shoots out, sticking into Jabulile. But instead of covering her, she falls to the ground. He looks at her and tells her, "That's never happened. Something might have gone wrong." Back on the floor, Jabulile begins to open up her eyes, and they now glow red. She gets back up, breaking out of the rope restraints, and sees Carnage just sitting there reading the book. So using this time, she begins to think, what can she possibly do? Because she knows that she can't fight Carnage, but she can do the next best thing. After a few more preparations, she hops onto a lifeboat, and Carnage asks, "Where are you going?" She tells him she's not going anywhere. He is. He takes a sniff around, and he says, "Not again." And the boat explodes. Night sets as Jubilee's lifeboat begins to float along the ocean until the light is shined on her. She looks up to see a man telling her that his name is John Jameson, and this is Manuela Cauldron, Eddie Brock, and Victoria Montesi. Eddie looks at Jabulile and tells her, "You got some explaining to do." Once on the boat, Jabulile explained what happened, and Manny said, "So he's alive." You see, shortly after the events of our first story, Claire Dixon was discharged from the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. for failing to capture Carnage. She was then brought into a group known as the Children of Midnight, because they want to stop Carnage and the Darkhold, the book that he is currently after. Carnage did a little bit of research on his own, and it turns out that he was looking for Roger Fellwood Jr., and he ended up killing the senior. But eventually, the research that Carnage was doing had led him to Jakarta, Indonesia, and Claire and her new group, the Children of Midnight, were shortly following after him. 2 days later into Jakarta, 3 men begin running, and one stops to catch his breath, and he says that he thinks he's here. Another man asks, "Who? The Red Slayer?" Brother Gregory said that he was just a fairy tale. Carnage's voice then tells them, "That's the thing about fairy tales in real life! In fairy tales, the monsters are always the bad guys." He leaps out of the shadows, killing the two men, and he tells the last one that a guy in San Francisco told him all about their chthonic brotherhood. He also knows that those in the brotherhood answer to a guy named Brother Gregory, which is someone that he would really like to talk to. Carnage then tells the man that if he tells him where Brother Gregory is, you can go, and if you don't, I'll find someone else to ask. The man tells him please don't, but Carnage says, that's the wrong answer, and he kills him. A voice then tells Carnage, he really couldn't tell you. Carnage looks up to see a rather short man and he asks, who the hell are you? The man says that he goes by many names. Some even he forgets, but people just call him the Darkhold Dwarf. Insensitive, right? The dwarf begins to walk off, stating that the man he seeks is Gregory, and he believes that he has them. Carnage's tendrils creep towards the Darkhold Dwarf, but he swats them away, stating, I'm not here to give you answers. I'm here to issue a warning. The dwarf continues to walk off while Carnage's symbiote begins to retract, peeling off of Cletus. Cletus then asks, how is this? But the dwarf tells him, just remember the book offers great rewards and greater risks. Keep in mind, that person doesn't use the Darkhold, it uses them. A little while later over in the shipping yard, some freight sailors are looking at the nautical charts telling Brother Gregory that there is nothing there. Gregory tells the men to let him worry about that. They'll be leaving soon. Reports begin to come in that 3 brothers have gone missing and the Red Slayer is hunting them down. Knowing this is going on, the brothers then use sigils to capture Carnage, using the magic of the Darkhold to prevent him from moving and making him rather docile. Now that Gregory has Carnage and the Darkhold book, they begin to move them all onto the freighter, preparing to move to this location that everyone is trying to head to, yet no one seems to know what's there. But as they're moving Carnage onto the boat, he begins to laugh. One man asks, why is he laughing? And Gregory says, it's because he's trying to mock us. Carnage tells them, I'm laughing because you keep referring to me, Carnage, but there's also someone else inside of me. The symbiote retracts and Cletus asks, what do you think the sigils are gonna do to me? He breaks out of the chains and he dives back into the water below. Gregory tells himself, no, 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 no. And seconds later, Carnage jumps back out of the water. He tells them all, you all say no, but I say yes. And he begins slicing everyone to pieces. Gregory begs Carnage not to kill him, but Carnage says, I came here to have a chat with you. I've got questions about this book. So how about we start with, why did you want me on the boat? Gregory tells him that there's an island not in any map with an altar. And Carnage tells him that in San Francisco, someone told him that he needed to find an altar to make the book work. So it seems like this will be a good start to a beautiful friendship between us. As the sun rises, Victoria and her group arrive at the docks to find that they are too late. The freighter is already gone. So she tells her group that they're going to need a ship. A fast ship. And that brings us back to the current day. When Carnage was heading to this location out in the middle of the ocean, his ship got into a wreck. Jabulile found him, brought him onto her ship. She then had to flee on a lifeboat where she was picked up by Victoria following Carnage's ship. And now that Jabulile is sitting on Victoria's yacht talking with Claire about everything that's been going on, she says that it's a lot to take in. She rescues a man, she blows up her own boat, she gets rescued, and according to their boss, there's some old-timey doomsday prophecy going on. Claire tells her that she's sorry that they didn't meet earlier. She was indisposed. She extends her arm to shake her hand, but when Jabulile touches it, the eyes of both of them turn red and the visions of the past begin to flash before them. We now go to another flashback. 5 days earlier, the crew were all riding on Victoria's yacht as they began to get closer to the freighter. Inside, everyone was trying to figure out why Carnage is on his way to an island that wasn't listed on any map. And Eddie tells everyone that the freighter is just up ahead. Once everyone gathered up, Victoria explained that Carnage is looking for an altar to complete the prophecy of the Red Slayer. The island they're heading towards is not on any nautical map, so as far as the world is concerned, this place doesn't even exist. However, one person that is said to know where the island is the leader of the chthonic cult in Jakarta. As the yacht began to get closer to the freighter, everyone began to suit up, and as they board the ship, Victoria told them that their bullets would have a special chthonic symbol on them. As they arrived at the docks, they found weapons with these on them, which they are led to believe will weaken Carnage. Eddie then says, there's really only one way to deal with a symbiote, and that's another symbiote. Claire tells Eddie that he's only here because Manny owed him her life. While he may think that he's on a road to redemption, Claire doesn't. The team begins to move out, and as they walk through the freighter, all they find are dead bodies scattered about. Except these bodies, they're just mutilated, not as much killed. Eddie says Carnage tried to infect the people like he did back in the States, and Victoria adds that Carnage doesn't understand how the Darkhold works, so that's why he wants Gregory and the altar. The group continues on to the lower levels of the freighter only to find more bodies scattered about and mutilated. Suddenly, the group begins to hear a voice calling out to them, and Claire looks up to see a partially mutilated man telling them to please kill him. The man tries to tell them that there were others, and how Gregory brought him aboard. Please, it hurts, just kill me. A gunshot goes off, and Eddie looks at everyone asking, what? The guy literally said he wanted to die. Manny stops for a moment and tells everyone that the man said that there were others. Suddenly, a group of mutilated men jump out hissing, and everyone opens fire on them. As the firefight goes on, Claire begins to fall back, and as she stumbles into a room, she hears a voice. Gregory sits in a corner chained up, stating how he thought he could control him, but they couldn't. They couldn't control Carnage. Claire leans down, telling him that she will kill him, but a red tendril begins to creep out from behind, and it knocks Claire out. A short while later, smoke begins to rise as Claire opens up her eyes, hearing Carnage's voice. He tells her, tisk, 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 on you for trying to capture me. And right now, parts of me want to return the favor. Claire looks around to see herself chained, hanging over the Darkhold, and Carnage telling her, pay attention now, cause you're gonna love this. Back in the present day, on Victoria's yacht, going to that location of that altar, everyone heard a rustle, and they rush out to ask Jabulile what happened. John tells her that she should be in bed resting, but Jabulile says that she needed some air, and then a woman came up to her, and everything got weird. Victoria asks what woman, and Jabulile says the woman said her name was Claire Dixon. Claire Dixon is the woman who led the original FBI investigation into the mines in West Virginia to try and capture Carnage and this cult. Everyone stops though, and Manny says that that's impossible. Jabulile asks why is that, and Victoria says because Claire Dixon is dead. A few days prior to their current voyage, everyone was continuing their fight against the mutilated men, and as they began to fall back, the group began to search for Claire. Victoria started to look at a map of the ship and tells everyone that they must not forget their purpose. Carnage and the Darkhold are their primary concern. She then tells Singh and John to head to the fuel room to plant explosives and set them to go off in 30 minutes. Manny asks why they would even bring explosives, and Victoria tells her that destroying the ship is always a potential strategy. And how things are now, it looks like it may be their only option. They need to get moving now. Before leaving though, Eddie says, just in case you're interested, I'm currently out of ammo. Victoria reaches for her necklace and pulls out a symbiote activator. Eddie asks her how, but Victoria says that she has her sources and she also feels the same as Claire and will only press this button as a last resort. If she presses it, she will free the toxin symbiote from Eddie, allowing him to become toxin. As John and Singh separate from the group, John says that everything is moving so fast it's really hard for him to understand. The only thing that he wants to know is what group she represents. Singh says the Children of Midnight. When he was a young boy, the Chthonic Brotherhood attacked his village. His family was slain, and he too would have been killed if it wasn't for Victoria. So whatever she asks, he does. John thinks about it and asks, how did Victoria save you when you were a boy? You've got to be like 50, and Victoria's no more than 35. But before Singh can go on, they begin to hear a clanking, and a swarm of mutilated men begin to attack. Singh says that they must protect the explosives, and John begins to change into the man-wolf. Back with the other group, Victoria tells everyone that they're coming up on the Darkhold, and then she turns to Eddie. Eddie tells her, do it! And seconds later, toxin bursts out. Carnage tells everyone, took you long enough. And Manny asks, where's Claire? Carnage said, who? Your FBI pal? She's right here, but don't call her Claire anymore. What's your new name? And the symbiote Claire jumps out screaming, Raise! Victoria says there's nothing they can do. Leave Claire to Eddie. She begins firing at Carnage, but before he can say the bullets won't work, the bullets begin tearing through him. As Claire struggles with Eddie, he tells her, it's funny how you never let me use toxin, and here you are being controlled by Carnage. Claire tells him, no one controls me. The symbiote is a tool. Right now I am a weapon. Back below at the fuel room, Singh finishes setting up the rest of the explosives and tells John that they must go. But as he looks back, he sees John ripping apart the mutilated men's bodies as the man-wolf. John looks back and Singh tells him, remember who you are. You're Colonel John Jameson. The beast doesn't own you, you own the beast. Slowly, John begins to revert back and he says, you must love taking risks. And Singh tells him no. I'm simply a man of faith. Up above, Victoria gets the notice for the explosives and tells Manny that it's time for them to go. Eddie punches Claire off of him and the three begin taking off running. Once everyone's topside, John asks, where's Claire? But Claire jumps out, pulling Eddie back, stating, it's Raise now! Carnage begins to help pull back Eddie, and Victoria pulls out a sword and cuts through Carnage's arm. Everyone jumps off the freighter and Carnage tells them, damn it! And the freighter explodes. Back in the present day, after all of those events have happened, with Carnage having mostly made his way over to the unknown location, Jabulile goes on stating that whatever Carnage did to her, it didn't change her into a monster and made her feel him. She can sense that he's going to that island, and Victoria then says that it's time for them to head that way. Jabulile then asks, what about Claire? And Victoria tells her again, Claire Dixon is dead. This is the middle road chapter of this ongoing Carnage storyline. Now, we did the first chapter, I think about a month and a half ago. We did take a little bit of time to get to this part, but the reason was part 3 is just now wrapping up, so we can move on to it relatively soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did enjoy this and you want to know what's going to happen next, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to follow these Carnage storylines that happen in all new, all different Marvel. And don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian, where we can chat about just about whatever you want.